Diane mistakenly spilled coffee on Clinton, the CEO of the company where she worked. Clinton shouted and insulted her, reminding her of her poor background because he sees Diane as a lowly janitor and treats her with disgust. Unaware to Clinton that Diane's mom was the woman who saved him from starving when he was in school. If you've watched to this point and haven't subscribed, please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell to always get notified on new and interesting stories. Clinton Jeffrey, a wealthy but arrogant CEO, had built his empire from the ground up, or so he liked to believe. He had no patience for the weak or sympathy for those who struggled. To him, hard work was the only thing that mattered, and if someone wasn't climbing the ladder fast enough, it was their own fault. One afternoon, Diane Thompson had just finished mopping the CEO's office when Clinton's voice cut through the air like a whip. He berated her harshly for accidentally spilling coffee on his expensive suit. Diane was short of words and began apologizing immediately. As Diane tried to clean off the stain from his sleeve, he pushed her away as if irritated by her existence. He also went as far as asking Diane if she knew how much the suit cost and reminding her that she could never afford it even if she sold her belongings. This left Diane heartbroken and helpless. But what can she do? He was her boss. With fury in his voice, Clinton asked Diane out of his office. Diane swallowed her anger and quickly left with tears welled up in her eyes. She had been working in his company for almost a year now, enduring his arrogance more times than she could count. The employees nearby chuckled nervously, too afraid to comment but secretly entertained by the scene. Diane said nothing, she simply bowed her head and walked away. Clinton barely noticed the way her fingers trembled, and unknown to Clinton, Diane has been watching him closely, never reacting to his insults. A week later, Clinton's company, once untouchable, faced a severe financial crisis. Stocks plummeted and investors pulled out. He was even forced to make desperate cuts. The stress took a toll on him, and for the first time in years, Clinton felt powerless. He spent sleepless nights in his office, searching for solutions that didn't exist. His once loyal staff now avoided eye contact, fearing they would be the next to be let go. One evening, he was overwhelmed and stayed late at the office, too tired to drive home. Clinton sat at his desk, his head in his hands. The only other person in the building is Diane, mopping the floors. She watches him struggle, debating whether to speak. Then, she does something unexpected. She places a small food package on his desk before walking away. Clinton hadn't eaten all day, and he hadn't even realized how empty his stomach felt until a familiar scent wafted through the air. Stew. The kind that smelled like home. He looked up to find a small container on his desk, wrapped neatly with a plastic spoon resting beside it. At first he frowned and turned toward the door just in time to see Diane pushing her mop down the hall. "Did you?" He stopped himself, then looked at the food again. He hadn't had a home-cooked meal in months. Something about the smell and warmth of it triggered a memory so deep he almost couldn't reach it. This memory was the memory of a small food stall outside his old school, owned by a kind woman who used to feed him when he was a poor schoolboy, a woman whose kindness kept him alive. But he dismisses the thought. The next morning, Clinton found himself watching Diane as she cleaned. He had never really looked at her like that before. She wasn't just another janitor. There was something about her posture, the way she moved with quiet purpose, that felt familiar. As if she could sense his gaze, Ava turned and asked if he had something to say. Clinton hesitated and asked if the food last night was from her. Diane wiped her hands on her apron and admitted the food was from her. Clinton became speechless, not knowing what to say, but then he asked why. Diane told him her mom raised and taught her to help people in need just as she had helped him last night. Again Clinton was surprised, as all his life the kind of help he had ever received was when he was in school. He applauded Mrs. Thompson, Diane's mom, for raising her well, and also wanted to appreciate Diane for helping him out. He noticed the shoe Diane wore was worn out and used that opportunity to take her out for shopping as a means of appreciation. Diane wanted to refuse, but when she remembered that she really needed a change of wardrobe, she had no other choice than to accept. They both agreed on a particular time and day convenient for both parties and hung out. This one hangout led to several hangouts over time, and Clinton began to know Diane the most. The more he knew her, the more he loved her personality. One day Clinton visited Diane at home and saw the picture frame of Mrs. Thompson hanging on the wall. Her face looked familiar, and out of curiosity he asked who she was. Diane immediately and excitedly replied, "My mom." "You don't remember, do you? The woman who used to feed you when you had nothing, when you were just a hungry schoolboy with no home and no money. You used to call her Mama T." The room spun. Memories came rushing back, days when he sat outside a small food stall, stomach growling, pretending he wasn't hungry until the kind woman behind the counter would slide a plate toward him with a gentle smile. Mama T. Ethan's breath hitched. His eyes locked onto Ava's face, and for the first time, he saw the resemblance. The same warmth in her eyes and the same quiet strength. Diane went ahead to tell Clinton that her mother had always believed in him, knowing he would make it in life with just a little help. Clinton also recurred how she never told him to pay back. After a while Clinton lowered his gaze with shame washing over him, and also realizing he had built his empire on arrogance, on the belief that he had done it all on his own. But the truth was, he had been lifted by kindness, a kindness he had long forgotten. Tears welled up in Clinton's eyes as Diane told him her mom passed away a few months ago, but before she died, she told her about him and was so proud of how far you had come. Clinton then asked if that was why she came to work in his company. Diane said no, because she had already gotten the job before her mom told her about Clinton. Still curious, Clinton asked how Mrs. Thompson knew her daughter was working in his company. Diane said one day she and her mom were checking out the face of the CEO of the company online, and boom, his face showed up. That was how everything unfolded. Clinton regretted his actions towards Diane, became remorseful and apologized to her. The next day, Clinton called an emergency meeting. But it wasn't about firing employees or cutting losses, it was about change. He introduced a new program, one that would support low-level staff in advancing their careers. Janitors, clerks, assistants, anyone willing to work hard would have opportunities for education and promotion within the company. And the first person to benefit? Diane. He also gave her a chance to rise beyond her janitorial job. But she refuses a handout as she wanted to earn her way up. Clinton respected her decision. So, he gave her a mentor and a scholarship, and over time, Diane worked her way from janitor to an office manager, proving to everyone, including Clinton, that she was far more than what people saw. Clinton, too, changed. He visited Mama T's grave often, leaving flowers and silent gratitude. And every year, on the anniversary of the day she first fed him, he made sure no hungry child went without a meal. Because kindness, once given, must never be forgotten, and the debts of the heart can only be repaid with more kindness. I also want you to understand that true success is not just about wealth but about the impact we leave on others. If you find this story interesting and valuable, drop a comment on what you've learned in the comment section. Also give this story a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel to get more interesting stories. Thank you.